So we are good to go.
All right, we are officially underway. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
I hope you guys are having good weather on your end.
Yes, it is our last, well, it could be our last nice day with a capital N and D because it's October. So once the bottom falls out, it's going to stay there until April.
I think it's late August in Maryland.
15.
All right, so let's get this underway and start off with the agenda. Any announcements anybody has to make?
My server died and I resurrected it, and I was able to use the koha restore command, which actually proved to be pretty beneficial because it actually showed that the process that I had been developing about porting production data off production and taking it into my development server for testing, it showed that I could actually shorten it up considerably and use good administrator form and not the poor form that I had basically been using for that. So despite the fact that my server was down for about 2 weeks, all for a problem that was not of my causing, it ultimately showed to be pretty beneficial. And what I'm hoping to do with that is, much like my installation instructions, write up something quick for people to follow if they would like to port their data out to another instance or to another server for testing purposes.
So John, when you say your server died, you mean just your Koha instance? Are you running, is your Koha running on just hardware, or is it VMware and Ubuntu?
It's VMware, and the link between the virtual machine and the virtual disk somehow got corrupted.
Uh-huh.
And it could have been at the same time a whole bunch of other VMware stuff had been going on that was really major in nature. Everything else seemed to recover except for my server. And so I was wandering into pretty uncharted territory for me. And as it turns out, the very first command I tried would have actually solved the problem correctly if I had remembered the trailing slash.
Ah.
Yeah. And so once I put the trailing slash in 2 weeks later, the connection was restored and my server was fine as if nothing had ever happened.
So when you say you use Koha Restore, I don't imagine that's something that most people here have ever used or had used. It sounds like we've got an original experience here with you. Am I right? Has anybody else used Koha Restore?
Never heard of it.
Is that something that is in Koha, or is that something that you found online? Does that exist?
It's located, if you go to the wiki and you go to the page that talks about commands and Debian packages, it's one of the things listed there. What I think a lot of people are not necessarily aware of is the fact that every morning, sometime around 6:30 or so, your system will actually back itself up, and it will take the SQL tables and zip them up, and it'll take the configuration files and zip them up and store them in a specific directory that by default is /var/spool/koha/ and then your instance name. And also by default, it will keep 2 days worth. There's a way to change the parameter, and that's listed in that commands wiki page also, but I've never gotten that to stick, because I was actually like more than 2 days worth. I've known about that for quite some time. I found that out pretty quickly, but I did not realize it could actually be used for a full-blown instance restore. And it actually will unzip the SQL tables and fully restore those. It will fully restore all of your instance-specific files, but if there are other files you've modified, like Apache for ports and that, it doesn't restore those. You have to do that manually. And after it does all of that restoration, which on a system of about 430,000 records took about 30 minutes, then it will actually completely rebuild your index. And for me, that took about 3.5 hours. So all told, it took about 4 hours to restore that particular instance. My acquisitions instance is a lot smaller, and that restored within a matter of like 2 minutes. But my 434,000-ish production catalog instance took about 4 hours with all of those various steps.
Well, I'm excited to see your write-up. That'd be a great thing to put on our website.
Yes. Yeah, so it was bad that it happened, but it really got that process that I had actually talked about before. I said the way I had it before, I was doing a lot of things manually, and I was having problems with permissions. And the way I would simply solve the problem with permissions was make everything 777, which is awful form, especially if you've got any sort of secure data. Well, I never had secure data, so I really didn't care about that. Now I don't have to worry about any of that because koha-restore is a nice package command that does everything for you, and it does it a whole hell of a lot quicker than anything I had put in place before.
That's sweet, John. It's good to know you had that experience. It'd be fun to see what you have to share back. That's awesome.
Yeah, I look forward to trying it out myself.
I hope I never have to use it.
God, yes.
Keep breaking stuff so that we can learn from your experiences.
I've broken a few things already, and it was interesting because I also discovered like that it does restore everything, but it doesn't restart Plaque. You have to re-enable Plaque. You may or may not have to re-enable memcached for those sites that are using that. We're using both in our production server, and so Zebra also somehow stopped. And I'm like, oh my God, it said everything's restored. Why can't I find everything? Well, if you go to the About Koha page at the very bottom where it talks about Zebra, instead of listing all of the information about Zebra, it simply says error and it says Zebra is not running. And so then I went to that same commands page and talked somewhere about Zebra, restarting Zebra. And once I had that, I was back completely in business.
Good job.
Nice going, John.
Yes. Let me rephrase what I said. I look forward to following your instructions in a slightly more controlled environment when I move to a new server.
Yeah, I was wondering if you're just going to goose your server and go back and try to fix it. I said that.
No.
Oh, jeez. All right. Any other announcements? Hopefully on a more positive note.
Great way to start the meeting, though.
Okay. Let's move on. Bylaw amendment vote results. Jason, can you share those?
I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but the bylaw votes passed unanimously by the number of people that voted. So we've updated the website to reflect that, and I can get you guys a link to those if someone hasn't already.
All right, and just a recap, previous to the vote, the board had voted to give the members power over the bylaw amendments, and then we exercised that change and had you guys vote on amendments to mostly officer related terms. So
That's correct.
all right.
And if you want to check out those changes, their link is in the chat now. So you should have already seen it if you voted on it. So we should be good.
All right, thank you. Owen, welcome, by the way. It's good to see you here. All right, let's go on to officer nominations. So we have, I believe we have 3 officers that are going to be up for nominations. We've got the vice president, because George will be moving on to my position at the end of the year. And then we also have treasurer that is up for a nomination, and then also the member at large, which is our supported member at large position. Fred is not going anywhere. So those 3 positions are up for a nomination. So if you would like to throw in your hat for a nomination on the board, please let us know. You can send that information to one of us or at info@koha-US.org, and we will post those nominations and have them up for votes. Are we doing the? I can't remember. Did we say we were doing the vote next month, or are we? posting the nominations next month?
We are calling for nominations this month. I think we're going to send out an email after this meeting so everybody gets it. And then the nominations will be up and presented at the general meeting, and then we'll vote on them at the general meeting in November. And then the nominations will be made official in the December meeting, I think, was our timeline.
Great.
Yep.
And then,
Can't-
of course,
this-
the transition takes place January 1st.
I think we need to make John the permanent treasurer.
I would like to second the nomination, not
gonna
necessarily
third that one.
permanently,
Fourth? Can we go fourth?
but yes.
John, you've made it hard to move on.
Yes, he
Yes.
has.
Yes, and because of that, because of all the hard work that he's done, he's also posed a plan for the future for, what was it, a manager of sorts, John?
Something that would be called either a financial manager or a business manager that would be a permanent position, not nominated by the membership, but the board would, the way I'm envisioning it right now, the board makes a recommendation to the membership that the membership then votes its approval or disapproval on. And that would help to ensure the continuity of things like financial institutions. That includes our PayPal account, it includes our bank account. It's basically designed to help keep a level of financial stability for compliance for those accounts, because to change them over even once every 2 years is an incredible pain and incredibly inconvenient, especially as regulations regarding the transition of this sort of thing keep on getting tighter. I mean, it basically took us 9 months to get everything fully transferred from Robin over to me. Now imagine having to do that every year or every other year. That's just, it's not a good long-term plan. And so the financial manager, the business manager would be responsible for those sorts of things and would provide information to the treasurer for things like the crafting of the budget. The financial manager would keep the official records, for example, but would work with the treasurer on selected things. And there would be a clause in there, again, as I'm currently envisioning it, that would allow for one but not both of the positions to be vacant. So if for some reason the treasurer, we don't get nominations for a treasurer, then the financial manager serves as the treasurer until a treasurer can be elected. Or if the financial manager leaves for whatever reason, then the wording that would go into the bylaws would say the treasurer would take over those responsibilities, at least temporarily, until a new financial manager is put in place. I'll be working with the finance committee on putting something together for a broader review, hopefully by next month, but definitely by December I'll have something for consideration.
So
Can I make a
Vicky,
request? Can I make a request that if you're not speaking, can everybody mute, because there's a lot of background noise? Just check to make sure that you're muted, please. Thanks.
or I can just mute anybody that I see that's not muted, that's not talking.
There you go.
All right.
It's hard to be spontaneous, though.
All right. So, anyways, if you are interested in taking up a seat in the board, please submit your name to us via email, and we'll get you on that list, and we will post those nominations for consideration for next month.
As a point of clarification, Christopher,
Yes.
it is not just self-nominations, but those that would like to nominate others are also encouraged to do so. Is that right?
Sure. If we all want to unanimously nominate John for a second term, we can go for that too.
Count me in.
All right. So last month we had a great conference with KohaCon, and that was a really I enjoyed that experience. I think it was one of the better conferences I've been to in a while. But now that we are past that, we do need to get a committee figured out for next year's conference. You know, the sooner the better. So I would like to ask if there's anybody that is interested in being involved in next year's conference and helping to plan that.
You know, one of the things we talked about at the board meeting last week is the idea that, you know, currently in the bylaws, any committees are officially chaired by the vice president. I would like to be a part of next year's conference planning committee too. And so we can start off with me as the chair of that. And when we elect a new vice president, you know, we can transition to them being the chair and me just being on the committee. But one of the things we talked about is one of the things that the committee should do this year as we're planning this conference is come up with a checklist of everything that we need to do that future committees can use to say these are the things that the committee needs to take care of, and maybe possibly a timeline. I know I've worked with other organizations in the past, like the Idaho Library Association, where there was actually a conference planning handbook for the main statewide conference, and then a smaller document for the regional conferences that kind of says, you know, this is what we do in October, this is what we do in November. You know, the conference every year was in October, and it's like, you know, starting on November 1st, this is what the committee does by the end of November, by the end of December. And I think it would be nice going into the future to have something like that to make it easier on the people doing the work. So that's one of the things that this committee ought to be doing this year, if you're interested in joining that committee.
So outside of George, are there any folks here that would be interested in being on that committee?
Well,
I'm interested in serving on the committee.
We got John and Todd and Vicky. Did you say yes?
no, I'm not going to be here, but I
Oh,
was just
okay.
going to say to the people who are on this call that have never done it before, it is a lot of fun, and you get to meet new people that you don't know and work with them, and it's a great thing. So I encourage you to do it.
Poor Vicky, forcing herself into retirement and can't do it. Good Lord.
I know, it's just horrible.
I saw Lisette, you raised your hand. You're going to serve on it? Okay,
And there's also in the chat, Valerie is interested in joining.
excellent. So we got 1, 2.
Pretty soon it'll be Nancy forcing herself into retirement too. Jeez.
So we got 5 people on the committee, so that's awesome. It's a good start.
And I wrote down everybody's names, so I'll send them an email, hopefully by the end of the day today.
Okay.
Welcome to the
I'd like to point
koha-US.
out you don't have to be employed to be on the committee.
Well, and one of the things I'll add to Vicky is Spencer and Ed at McKinney Public Library are really interested in the possibility of hosting this conference. So if we have it in McKinney, Texas, Vicky, then you'll definitely have to come. And I also see over in the chat box, Kelly is saying she'd like to be on that committee.
Awesome.
So I will.
I think I would love to come if it's in McKinney.
Well, we're wanting to kind of steer, we want to encourage the conference committee for this next year. We want to try and go to a different region because we've kind of been glued over here on the West Coast area, and it'd be nice to be able to, you know, go mid-state or over on the East Coast somewhere. So we encourage those of you in those areas, if you want to host, please feel free to let us know. We will have official requests for venues down the road here, but please keep that in mind and consider it.
For anyone who isn't familiar with McKinney, it's kind of a fun, old sort of town, and that's just a really beautiful and thriving place. So just an FYI.
I was just going to say the same thing, Todd. McKinney is just a very cute place. They've got great restaurants. There's some good shopping. It would be a great place to go.
If Spencer does it, he's going to pull out the stops.
Yep, exactly.
Okay. Along the same lines, now that we have our development plan in place, which, by the way, does have some timelines built in, a good model to work from, we do need to start forming a development vetting committee, because we need to get, now that we have the workflow planned out, we need to have a team that's going to help carry that out. And so I'd like to put out a call for any of you that would be interested in being on that development vetting committee, which is going to, help the process of the workflow, move that along, help put out the call for what developments we're going to be focusing our funds on. And so if you are unfamiliar with that workflow, you can find it on our website. But anybody interested, we would sure like to know about it. Is there anybody here that would be interested in being on that development vetting committee?
I would. Nancy.
Okay.
And Chris, given our work here at Bywater, maybe it might be beneficial for me to do it. Just a thought.
Sure.
Just because I can talk to the developers, especially our guys in the back end. So we've got direct communication.
Awesome.
Not to get off the thought of development, but if anybody decides afterwards, Chris, they can just email the officers or you directly, or I guess George now, since
Yep.
taking over.
Yep.
I've already written down Todd's name and Nancy's name, and I'll send them an email later.
Okay.
But yeah, we should find a way to make it easy for people to sign up for this committee. We have a page just for that, don't we? Yeah, Jason put the link in the chat box over here.
I thought Owen would have jumped in there in a heartbeat.
Yeah, and in fact, we should make sure that we communicate that clearly. If you're interested at any point on being a part of something, how to let us know. So,
well, what I'm thinking is I can go in and add a link or an email address on the development page saying, if you're interested in joining this committee, here's the way to get in touch with everybody. And I see Owen's name over here. Owen is
awesome, Owen.
Sorry, Bo.
Have you on board?
You're the best, Owen.
It looks like Todd may have guilted him into doing it. Okay, awesome. Committee reports. We have two reports real quick, and then we will move on to open discussions. Fundraising.
no report. We're going to meet at the end of the month, and I'll put that email on my list too.
Finance report. Wow, this is a very silent report here. John, turn your microphone on.
Oh, geez.
I unmuted you, John. I unmuted you.
Thank you. I'm sitting here hacking up a lung, which is why I had muted myself. There's a link in the agenda, but at least for me, it's not working properly. So if it's not working properly for you, let me give you some highlights. Everything with regard to our assistance with raising donations for KohaCon 2018 has come to an end. We received just under net $8,900 in donations, both corporate and individual. With all of the individual accounting for that done, I transferred the money over from our PayPal account to our bank account, wrote out a check, sent it over to Cindy Norman at an address that she had provided me, and that check has since cleared the bank. So we our financial accounts now fully represent money that is independent of any KohaCon 2018 donations. And so that is, that's looking good. We have a full finance committee again. Eli Anthony of Three Rivers Regional, I'm about to screw this up, I fear, Three Rivers Regional District Library. He came up to me based on our koha-US presentation at Portland and said he was interested in joining. So I'm glad to have him on board, in addition to Candace, who has been a member of this committee for just about a year now. She was one of the first two people that joined the finance committee. We're glad to have Eli here as well. And it is time to start thinking about next year's budget. When it comes to the December meeting, a budget that will have been reviewed by the finance committee and the board will be presented as part of the general membership meeting. For board members, if there are things that you would like to think about spending money on in calendar year 2019, now is the time to submit those to me so I can include them within the upcoming budget proposal. And finally, I'm making some internal accounting changes. The software I use to keep track of our bank accounts, I'm going to start subdividing certain things by calendar year, which of course is our fiscal year, to make it a little bit easier for me to keep track of how certain things are handled. And next month will be a quarterly report, because the activity of the organization through September will be finalized. And like I said before, we are sitting in a very good position. There won't be any oh my God moments, but we're doing particularly well. And thank you to everybody for their continued help and assistance, especially my finance committee members.
Awesome, thank you. And Jason did post a new link in the chat window for the report. Thank you for doing that. All right, any questions on the finance report? All right, moving on. And let me get my window back up. Okay. Open discussions now. We're moving on to bugs and issues, etc. By the way, so Todd, you had put in a request for us to talk about something, and I said that we were going to focus on that next month. Remind me again what that was.
Well, we started with the development committee, and we talked about having an education committee, since our goals really are, as well as development, to educate users of Koha. So I brought up starting an education committee.
So if you have any thoughts about that, we'll be talking about that next month for discussion. I'm just writing notes here. Okay. So open discussion, bugs, issues, etc. I know that Bywater is starting up webinars on, is it 18.5? So that's going to be coming down the pike here pretty quick. I hadn't heard anything. I haven't looked at what's actually in that version. Are any of you actually jumping the gun and have been on 18.5 yet?
Our test server was upgraded yesterday.
Oh,
So
wow.
I have just had a very quick first look at 18.05 this morning.
I'll be upgrading to 18.05 for my production server probably within the next week. I've got it running on development, mostly because I wanted to try to turn on Elasticsearch, but that bombed on me, so I haven't really done anything with it.
I do know that there was an update to the circulation page. They've changed from links to buttons.
It looks very weird if you're used to just the flat links. The first time I saw it, I was like, what the hell's going on here?
Well, and what I noticed on the front page is that the graphics don't quite line up correctly. thing, the internal graphics to the buttons are slightly higher or slightly lower than everything else on the screen. And so things get a little bit mismatched, and they're still not, it's not bad enough for you to say, what does this mean? But it looked differently, and I'm not quite sure what to make of that quite yet, but I also haven't really looked at it per se.
Interesting. I hadn't noticed that on the master. I don't know if that's something that's been cleared up since then or what, but interesting to know. Lisette, did I hear that you guys are going to be guinea pigs for?
Yeah, we're upgrading tonight to 1805. Oh, wow. So tomorrow I should have some interesting, feedback on 1805. I do have I set up a Koha dev box that was running slightly newer than 1805 because I couldn't figure out how to do older than that on the dev box. But it seems pretty nice so far. The staff here is actually pretty excited about the new buttons on the circ page, especially at some of the other libraries in our system where some of them use the circ page basically as their home page. They have it bookmarked and just log straight into there. And I know they're really excited for that.
Okay. So, any new bugs or issues that anybody's facing this month?
That'll probably be a more fruitful question after everybody's upgraded to 1805.
John, did you reinstall with the same version, or did you go from one version to another using the old configuration data?
Basically, in development, I installed 1805, and I did the upgrade with the data already in place. But I didn't start with a fresh and do a restore that way. I actually had restored the data on 1711 and upgraded to 1805.
Okay.
Owen says, thanks, John. I don't see that in master either. So referring to the shift. I feel like it's been quite a while since we've encountered any post-upgrade bug surprises. So, oh, looks like, George, you're bugging out. Or is that?
Nope, it's me.
Oh, it's.
Oh, okay.
There's two of you.
There is.
Yeah, there's two Northeast Kansas libraries.
Bye, y'all.
Yeah, that way. All right.
I think if I leave, everybody leaves.
I was going to say, well, how are you going to do that? Just going to leave the computer on. Okay. All right. Others. I will bring up, I really enjoyed the Hackfest at KohaCon, and one of the things that I've been working on, and I stalled moving forward with it because there's one other little issue that I found that I'm got to work out once I get my dev box going again. I had ran into another little issue, but I have a bug with a patch. I was able to figure out the elusive bug where if you place a hold on something and you have it waiting at a library and then it gets checked in at another library, whether somebody sends it off in courier by accident or patron picks it up off of a self-serve shelf, takes it home, and then returns it at another library, the item does nothing while it's in that waiting status if it's at the wrong library. I found a way to fix that. So hopefully I can get that turned around quickly and get that out in a not too distant release. But that one has been bugging me forever. So I'm excited about that.
Do you know the bug number on that? Sorry.
What was that?
Do you know the bug number on that?
I don't have my notes in front of me at the moment. I think it, let me pull it up. Hold on a second.
Chris, I said get it to Nick quick.
It would be nice if it could be in 1811. If that fix could be in 1811.
I would love for it to be.
And if it can be backported to 1805.
Yeah. So that one, waiting for it to come up here. That is 21,346. So keep an eye on that. I failed it temporarily because I was cleaning up some dialogues on the returns page as well, because some of the dialogues were the new modals, and some of them were still old dialogues, and some of them we were seeing actually a modal and then the old dialogue behind it, which was kind of redundant. So I've been working on cleaning that up. There's one little thing that I have to fix with holds where I was getting two modals at once. You'd answer one, and you'd see, if you scanned it in, you'd see well, actually, if you answered the modal, there was another modal behind it. So I just have to get it to not do both modals at the same time, and we should be good to go. I might, if I feel like this one's dragging on a little too long, I might separate it out, separate out the fix, because the fix is really, really simple, and doesn't depend on all the cleanup. So I just happened to work on both at the same time on that. So that's 21346. So yeah, I'm excited about that one.
I'm excited about it too. I think that's probably 75% of the missing in transit issues, or the we can't find this thing on the shelf issues that we have. So
yeah, and I think as libraries progress and are more progressive about allowing people to pull their own holds that are waiting, instead of it being behind the circ desk all the time, I think it's going to be cropping up more and more, because some people will grab their holds and they'll just walk out forgetting to check it out. So it is an issue, and
it's a huge issue for us, even though we have signs all over the shelves that say this material is not checked out yet.
Yeah, when I first brought it up, I remember bringing it up, and people were asking, who does that? It's like, no, this should never happen. People shouldn't do this. It's like,
yeah, that's the first thing that I was told is, well, it's not a problem with the software, it's a problem with the workflow. It's like, well, people are going to make mistakes.
Yeah. It's just a funny response, especially from programmers. You got to be out in the field and realize, oh, we have no control over this. These things happen. All right. Anything else from anybody? We got plenty of time here.
Everybody that wants to be signed up for the webinars has done so. We're getting ready to kick off. Just want to do a little reminder here.
Todd, do you have a link for where those signups are?
Yeah, let me find it, Chris. I'll get it over to you.
Yeah, throw it on the chat window.
The first one is in a couple of hours.
Yeah. Yep, I'm actually signed up for that one.
Yeah.
Are the webinars limited to Bywater customers?
You have to register for it. I don't think they're limited.
I think that question's come up before.
I can tell you it's pretty full. I think we had like 120 people register for today, and we haven't had that number before, so I think that we're a little underserved. We can handle up to 100. So we'll see what happens. We might have to increase our Zoom quickly.
Wow. And you do have another date for that same webinar, so that's a good thing.
So CQLS is having a trouble with their transfers to receive, and it's only for our particular location. This has been going on since August. It kind of goes off and on. And I know there's a bug 2855. And my feeble brain really can't understand a lot of the back talk about it other than it doesn't work. So
What's that bug number again?
20855.
208.
It seems to be just isolated to our branch. So, yeah. So the one person in our place that takes care of this is always in a panic, but I said, it's just us, so it's not so terrible. If it was all 54 locations, it would be a little bit more intense, but it kind of goes off and on.
You receive an item that is being transferred to you, and scan it in, and it gives you an error page?
Well, no, when we go into to try to launch transfers to receive, it just gives us an internal server error.
Oh, the page itself.
Yeah, we can't, the page itself, so we can't.
That was a default having accounts.
We can't see that. So
I didn't even think I knew there was a transfers to receive page. I thought people just checked stuff in.
well, wouldn't that be nice? If they did, we wouldn't need this page, but you know, yeah. So
Let's not, let's see here. Just trying to remember, pull up my system here.
I believe I have a report, Margie, that does essentially everything that transfers to receive does. Transfers to receive just shows you things coming to your library, but I have one that'll show you things that you're expected to receive, plus things that you sent that haven't also been arrived, plus things that you own that are in transit for a long time between two other locations.
yeah, I do have a couple of those other ones, but they're so used to going on and onto our reports page, just clicking on that, and it's kind of our reminder to make sure that people check their transfers to receive. And you know, when I visit small libraries and see we have things that are 365 days overdue, generally we go to check the shelves and pull it. But yeah, I mean, the report, I may just have to redirect people to the reports because they are a little bit, I would rather be the lending library, the sending library, knowing where my things are in transit rather than expecting the person that's receiving to do the work on it. But I'll get with you about that, George. So.
Okay. I'm seeing Owen posted a comment over here in the chat box. He says, are you able to confirm that this is a problem with the item type data?
Actually, I went back and looked at the bug, and I know that that's part of, I think null item types was something that was causing a problem. So I have gone through and tried to clean that up for our branch, but I'll work on that a little bit more. Since I'm not running the reports, I'm not running that. I have to rely on when it goes down for people to panic. So I'll look and see what's going on with that.
Okay. It's good to know. I don't know that it's related. We were having an issue where it was throwing up an error page when we would, we had a particular patron that would come up and we'd go to their holds tab and throw up an error. I'm thinking that one might have been like a side effect or an issue caused by how we close libraries, because we have a couple schools that we close, and so we have to block people from using them as a pickup library, and we also have to put their stuff in a holding pattern, basically, where people can't place holds on their items. So we have to trick the system a little bit in order to do that. Unfortunately, Koha has no built-in way to close a library for a long period of time. So I don't know if it was a side effect, but it seemed like it only happened to one particular patron. And once we got the holds out of there, a couple of holds out of there, everything else started to work again, and we were able to click on our holds. So it was kind of an odd thing that cropped up. We've only seen it like a couple times. Disappeared. Anyone else? Anything fun or interesting that they're dealing with?
Hey, George, I was looking for your link for the reports. Could you post that in here?
It's a SQL report on my system, so nobody can access it from a link unless they can log into Knuckles, which actually Margie could.
But you've got that Koha things blog spot that you do, and you've got a bunch of reports.
Yeah, I haven't put that report on there, but I can.
And could you put that link in the channel too, please? Just show off things, whatever it is, for all your reports. I thought I had it, and I was looking for it, and I can't find it.
Well, that's the blog that I update like once a year. Well, at least that's been the average so far for the last year.
I think you've got it on the koha-US website as well, right?
I believe Jason's reports are the ones that are on koha-US, and I don't think those are there anymore.
No, they were on the wiki, but I haven't put them anywhere. So that's a to-do thing.
This won't be as useful to everybody. Let me find the link for my GitHub page, if I can. Let's see here. Anybody that's yeah, I'm looking for the right page here. This is the link. All of the Knuckles reports are on GitHub. It's just that it's impossible to search them because this is my, Joy would call it a data lake. This is where all of our reports are, all 1,055 SQL reports that we have. I use GitHub to track changes to the reports and to kind of have a place to back them all up, because some things happen, like what happened about a month ago, where somebody went to run a report that they run all the time, and it wasn't there anymore because somebody in another library had deleted it. And so because I have all of these reports backed up, I can go find the ones that get deleted accidentally, and then I can figure out who it was that deleted them and take away their permission to delete them, which is exactly what I did. But yeah, it's hard to go through these reports. If you go to that link, it's every piece of SQL that Knuckles has is there, but they're not organized other than just by report number. There is one of these files is an HTML that will show you more information, but I'm not sure. Let me see if I can find that file. You guys can keep talking, and I'll look for that for a second or two.
So real quick, Chris, one of the other things we talked about, and John, you were on that conversation, was I had an inquiry from Heather Hernandez over at San Francisco Maritime. She would like to be able to do some training. And I think I sent the officers information in regards to Udemy, the education site, and it had to do with 501c3s. I didn't pursue going any further, calling them and trying to find out any information. I thought I'd either let that be delegated, or if somebody else wanted to pick it up, one of the officers wanted to pursue and see.
I took a look at that because I'd actually looked at it prior when you had mentioned it in another meeting, Todd. And for nonprofits, it's almost like some sort of weird enterprise license. You have to buy a minimum of 5 users, and each user is $240. And so, yeah, that was my basic response. And so something like that would be if we could possibly use GrantStation that we've now renewed for another year, thanks to Todd's generosity, and see if we might be able to get a grant to put together that we would allow us to purchase something like this. That's something worth considering.
That is a good idea, John. And I'll start looking for a grant.
Yeah, I saw the same thing. I thought, oh, nonprofit, and I surely didn't expect it to be free, but I also didn't expect it would cost over $1,000.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. $250 for each user, and we've got a number of users who'd like to be able to take advantage of that. I wonder how they detect the user. Is it just per person logged in, or specifically for PC, for region? I wonder what they do.
That's a good question, and that's where my investigation stopped.
Sure.
Once I saw those numbers.
Yeah, mine too. I looked at it and it seems a bit excessive.
Yeah.
All right. Margie is
Brings
taken
me
off.
on. Bye, Margie.
Bye, Margie.
All right.
I got a perfect grid. Yes.
Quick, take a picture.
That's the Koha.
I wanted to bring up, let's see here. I want to bring up bug 17854. So it is signed off, but I had specifically asked people not to sign off on it yet because I wanted it to be more of a discussion. I didn't put it in discussion because Katrine said that kind of puts it into this void of, nobody touches it, looks at it or anything. So I put it in needs sign off.
What's the number again?
Somebody signed off on it. 17854. I want to encourage discussion on it because there were a couple different ways to approach it, and there's also some other things that could be done with it that I can't specifically do. But this bug basically, you have the option to have a close button on your patron account, so that when you're done with it, you click the X and it goes back to a basic screen without any patron information on it, and you can't go back and back up to that account. This adds a little print button next to it and does essentially the same thing, but it prints a slip, then closes. So it kind of saves you some steps of having to go up to the print button and selecting something. I know that there's there's an option to just press enter and enter a blank barcode to print, but then you still have to close. This kind of just takes care of all of it at once. So it gives us a different option. And one of the discussions that was in there, trying to remember, was a different approach. Why not make it a setting in the preference, I believe, was the discussion. And the reason I didn't go that route was because it does not work for consortiums. I mean, if you don't print slips, that is not a good option for you. So, and if not all libraries in your consortium are printing slips, the preference is an all or nothing setting, and I didn't want to go that route. I wanted to give everybody an option. So having a button there next to the close button sounded like the better way to go. But I want to put it, I want to encourage people to weigh in on it. And Owen says to suggest that I do put it in discussion, so I will do that just because Owen said to do it.
That way when Katrine says, why did you put it in discussion when I told it not to, you can say, well, that's what Owen told me to do. That'll cover your bases there.
It's Owen's fault now.
If Owen says do it, you do it.
If it dies, it's his fault.
I guess, looking at this, I had never seen this bug before. I have the exact same comments you do, as we have libraries that don't have receipt printers, and we have patrons at libraries that don't want receipts. We have half of the people want receipts, half of them don't. We're encouraging all of our libraries, because of the problems with the thermal paper shortage, and the price of the receipt paper going up and up and up. We've got a lot of libraries that what I've actually done is I've used jQuery to change one of the options in the table for the messaging preferences. There's two options down there. There's one for item check-in and item check-out. So every time a patron checks out an item, they can get an email that says, hey, you just checked something out. And the default wording on that message is just is not very good. It just kind of says these are the items you checked out today. So I reformatted that so that I used jQuery to reformat the messaging preferences table so it actually says digital receipt, and I've rewritten all of those item checkout messages so that it actually, the patron gets a thing in the mail that says digital receipt, and it's formatted just like you would the piece of paper that comes out. And so we have a lot of patrons that we're trying to encourage them to go that direction, so that we're not wasting as much paper. And it seems like this is something that would never work with our system, with 51 libraries each doing something completely different. So.
Okay. So here, there was one other thing I wanted to bring up before we close up shop here, but it slips my mind. So I think we're at 9:29. Are there any other comments or things anybody wanted to discuss before we close up for the day?
All members should have a responsibility of finding more members. So go out and find that. So go out and find a member. Bring them in.
Please do.
Is everybody here a paying member?
I
am.
Well, I was hoping that somebody would say no, because then we could just all point at them and say, we found one.
Shame them into paying.
Now, I do want to encourage everybody to, if they get a chance, to look at the website. We are going to be focusing next month at Todd's request on education. Think of our website and ways we can improve the site to cater to that. We've done some stuff, but we really want to be able to make this a easy and positive experience for people. We want people to be able to gravitate towards our website and find it useful. So if there are things about our site that need to change, ways that we can improve it to make contribution easier, by all means, please email us, talk to us. We want to hear feedback about the site because that is our key presence online. So with that said, we're going to go ahead and wrap things up. So Jason, our next meetings.
Okay, so the board will meet next month on the 7th of November, same time, 10:30 Central, whatever that is for you. And then the general meeting will take place the 14th of November, same time. So 10:30 Central. Standard at that point.
With that said, please submit your nominations. Email will go out today about that, and hope to see you guys next month. Thank you for coming, and have a great month.
Bye, everybody.
I'm sure I'll see some of you in about an hour and a half at the Bywater webinars. So see you all later.
All right.
Bye.
Take care, guys.
Where do I get the hell